At Baird Park, on a sunny afternoon, birds chirp, a slight breeze rustles the trees, and the sound of laughter and chatter fills the background. There are days when everything feels serene and safe, a day like today. Baird Park, a sprawling green oasis in the middle of the city, is bustling with life. Families are enjoying picnics on checkered blankets, friends are playing frisbee, and dogs race across the grass. In the middle of it all, Adan Chike sits on a park bench, quietly engrossed in a book. To an onlooker, he's just another man enjoying a break from the rush of life. Adan, dressed neatly in a crisp white shirt and dark slacks, absorbed in his reading. But Adan isn't just anyone. Beneath his calm exterior is a disciplined and accomplished mind, a special agent with the FBI. Adan has served his country in numerous ways, working undercover, handling high-stakes investigations, and bringing criminals to justice. Today, though, he isn't here on business. Today, Adan is simply a man in need of a little peace. Officer Travis Brock is a police officer in his early 40s, with a gruff demeanor and an intense gaze. He walks briskly through the park, scanning the area. Travis Brock is a veteran police officer with over a decade on the force. Known among his peers for his no-nonsense attitude, Travis prides himself on being able to spot troublemakers from a mile away. Today, he's on his routine patrol, keeping an eye on the park as he always does, ready to handle any situation. But Travis carries something more dangerous than his badge and gun. He carries assumptions, biases he's never questioned, attitudes that he believes make him a better officer. Travis's eyes land on Adan, and his brow furrows slightly. A slow suspicion builds within him. As Travis scans the park, his gaze stops on Adan. Something about this man on the bench makes him uneasy. Maybe it's the way Adan is dressed too well for an ordinary park visitor, he thinks. Or perhaps it's because Adan isn't interacting with anyone, sitting alone, immersed in a book instead of the usual park activities. But if Travis is honest, there's something else shaping his suspicion, a quiet bias he doesn't even realize he's holding on to. His eyes narrow as he watches Adan. Convinced he's on to something, Travis approaches the bench. Instead of politely greeting Adan or offering a friendly hello, he stands a few feet away, observing him with a wary expression. Adan glances up, noticing the officer's stare, and a small crease forms on his forehead. He's no stranger to interactions like these, and he's learned to keep his composure in situations that could turn uncomfortable. Years of training have taught him not to react hastily, even when facing unwarranted suspicion. Travis clears his throat and speaks in a tone that's firm, almost accusing. "Good afternoon, sir. What are you doing here today?" Adan looks up, slightly confused, but answers calmly. "Good afternoon, officer. Just enjoying a little downtime and reading a book." Travis, who crosses his arms, his tone sharpening. "Is that so? I don't think I've seen you around here before. Mind telling me where you're from?" Adan's expression remains neutral, but there's a subtle tension in his jaw. He answers, without a trace of hostility. "I'm from around here, officer. Just a local. I'm not breaking any laws by sitting on a bench, am I?" Travis's suspicion only intensifies. To him, Adan's calmness seems like a front, an attempt to appear innocent. He decides to push further, convinced he'll uncover something suspicious. Despite Adan's calm demeanor and straightforward answers, Travis's suspicion doesn't wane. Instead, it grows. In Travis's mind, Adan's composure is a tactic to cover whatever he's hiding. With every polite answer, Travis feels his assumptions harden. He's convinced he has a gut feeling about Adan, a sense that's rarely wrong. But today, his instincts are leading him down a dangerous path. The two men facing each other, one standing, determined, suspicious, the other sitting, calm but clearly perplexed. Minutes pass in an uncomfortable silence as Travis's questions continue. Park goers nearby notice the interaction, some pausing to watch, sensing the tension. What should have been a peaceful afternoon for Adan has turned into an unexpected confrontation. He tries to stay calm, knowing that reacting too strongly might escalate things further. Yet inside, he can't help but wonder, why is he being treated this way? The onlookers, who exchange uncertain glances, and some even pull out their phones, recording the exchange from a distance. Little does Travis know, the man he's interrogating is more than capable of handling himself. But this isn't just an interaction with a civilian, this is an FBI agent he's questioning without cause, and his every move is being captured on camera. Adan's face, a calm expression masking the storm of thoughts within. Travis, however, is oblivious to the truth. He doesn't see an FBI badge, nor does he recognize the discipline and resolve that comes from years of federal service. All he sees is a black man sitting alone in the park, and in his mind, that's enough for suspicion. In a few minutes, this ignorance will lead Travis to make a decision that will change both their lives. With a tense standoff between Adan, sitting on the bench, and Officer Travis Brock standing over him, arms crossed. The background is filled with murmuring park goers, some of whom have started recording the interaction on their phones. As the seconds tick by, Adan Chike remains calm and composed, but a flicker of irritation crosses his face. He's used to handling high-stress situations. As an FBI agent, he's faced much worse. But there's something profoundly unsettling about being scrutinized like this here, in his own city, on a quiet day off. Travis Brock, still staring intently at Adan, searching for any sign of guilt. Officer Travis Brock doesn't know who Adan really is, and he doesn't care to find out. He's already decided that Adan is suspicious, though he hasn't paused to ask himself why. Travis prides himself on being able to sense when someone is hiding something. But what if his instincts aren't as accurate as he thinks? What if they're shaped by something far more troubling? Travis breaks the silence, his voice edged with suspicion. So, you're just here to read a book? That's it. Adan glances up, raising an eyebrow. He sees the suspicion in Travis's eyes, but chooses to respond with patience. Yes, officer. That's it. I came here to relax and enjoy some quiet time. I'm not bothering anyone. Travis scoffs, clearly unimpressed with the answer. He shifts his weight and crosses his arms tighter, his expression one of disbelief. Just seems strange. A man like you, sitting alone in a park, looking out of place. Adan senses the undertone in Travis's words. A man like you? He's heard it before, phrases that sound innocent but carry a weight of prejudice beneath the surface. He can feel the judgment radiating from Travis, a judgment based on something beyond his presence on the bench. Adan's years of training have taught him to keep his cool in situations like these. He's handled interrogation rooms, undercover missions, and confrontations that could turn violent at any second. This isn't his first encounter with a difficult officer. Still, there's something especially disheartening about being treated with suspicion simply for sitting in a public space. Adan takes a deep breath and offers a calm but firm response. Officer, I'm not sure what you're trying to imply. I'm simply here reading my book. I haven't disturbed anyone. Is there a reason why you're questioning me? Travis narrows his eyes, feeling the weight of Adan's words. Part of him realizes that he's overstepping, but his pride won't let him back down. Instead, he doubles down. I have the right to question anyone I deem suspicious. You might not be disturbing anyone, but you're different. I can tell when someone's hiding something. And you, my friend, are hiding something? Adan meets Travis's gaze unflinching, as a murmur ripples through the crowd. The people watching from a distance sense that something is wrong, and some exchange concerned looks. In his years of service, Adan has encountered countless officers, like Travis officers, who allow their personal biases to cloud their judgment, who use their positions of power to intimidate rather than protect. But Adan knows better than to react emotionally. He knows that every response he gives could be twisted against him. Adan decides to take a different approach, one that might help de-escalate the situation. Officer Brock, I assure you, I'm just an ordinary citizen enjoying a book in the park. I have no reason to hide anything. If you're looking for a reason to detain me, I'd like to know on what grounds. Travis's jaw tightens. He realizes that Adan's refusal to engage emotionally makes him look even more out of place in Travis's eyes. For a moment, Travis hesitates, unsure of how to respond. But his suspicion, fed by years of unchecked biases, pushes him forward. Look, I don't need a reason to ask you a few questions. Call it my sixth sense. I've been on the force long enough to know when someone's up to something. Adan studies Travis, noticing the determination in his eyes. He understands that reasoning with him might be pointless, but he decides to try once more. With all due respect, officer, maybe it's time to reconsider your sixth sense. Sometimes, assumptions aren't as accurate as they seem. Travis's face hardens, and he takes a step closer to Adan, clearly offended. Adan's calm response feels, to Travis, like a challenge, a refusal to submit. To the crowd watching, the tension between the two men is clear. Some shift uncomfortably, others hold their breath, waiting to see what will happen next. And in that moment, Travis makes a choice, one he can never take back. Travis pulls out his radio, pressing the button firmly. Dispatch, this is Officer Brock. I have a suspicious individual in Baird Park. Requesting backup. Adan's face remains calm, but internally, he feels a pang of frustration. This is spiraling out of control. He has done nothing wrong, yet he's being treated like a criminal. He knows he could reveal his identity as an FBI agent, end this confrontation with a flash of his badge. But something holds him back. Adan decides not to reveal who he is not yet. He wants to see how far Travis will go, how deeply this officer's prejudice runs. And so, he sits in silence, waiting as Travis radios for backup. He watches as the officer, unaware of Adan's true identity, digs himself deeper into a mistake that will soon unravel his entire world. Officer Travis Brock pacing in front of Adan, his radio still in hand. A few moments of silence pass as the tension lingers in the air. Onlookers continue to watch, some murmuring among themselves, others filming from a safe distance. With his backup call sent, Officer Travis Brock waits, feeling the weight of his decision. His hands are clenched, his face set in a determined frown. But there's an underlying hint of uncertainty in his eyes. Deep down, Travis senses that he's treading dangerous waters, but he pushes that thought aside. He believes he's in control. After all, he's done this before, questioned strangers, made arrests based on his instincts. But today, Travis's instincts are leading him down a perilous path. Adan Chike, who remains seated on the bench, still calm, his eyes following Travis's every movement. Adan's composed demeanor contrasts sharply with the agitation in Travis. As Adan sits quietly, he observes the officer's behavior. Years of training in the FBI have taught him to read people, to understand the motivations behind their actions. And right now, it's clear to him that Travis isn't interested in finding the truth, he's interested in proving his own suspicions right. For Adan, this isn't just an interaction. It's an illustration of prejudice unfolding before his eyes. Travis finally breaks the silence, his voice sharper than before. You think you're clever, don't you? Sitting here, acting calm, pretending you're just a normal guy enjoying the park. But I've seen people like you before. You're hiding something, and I'm going to find out what it is. Adan raises an eyebrow, taken aback by the officer's baseless accusations. But he keeps his composure. He knows that reacting with anger would only fuel Travis's assumptions. Officer, I've told you everything. I'm here for a peaceful afternoon, nothing more. I don't understand what you're trying to achieve by intimidating me. Travis scoffs, his suspicion hardening into a misguided conviction. Intimidating you? No, I'm doing my job. My job is to protect this park, to make sure people here are safe. And right now I see someone who doesn't belong, someone who could be a threat. Adan feels a pang of frustration, but holds his tongue. He's experienced moments like these before, times when his identity alone has made him a target. But this feels different. He's no longer just an innocent man being questioned. He's an FBI agent, a man trained to de-escalate situations, but also to hold people accountable for actions driven by prejudice. There comes the sound of sirens in the distance. Travis straightens, a sense of validation in his posture. He's confident that with backup his decision will be reinforced. As he watches the approaching patrol car, he shoots a smug glance at Adan. The sirens grow louder and soon a second police car pulls up near the bench. Officer Lina Moretti, a young but experienced officer, steps out, her expression one of confusion as she takes in the scene the calm man on the bench and the rigid posture of her colleague, Travis. She approaches with caution, her eyes flicking between Travis and Adan, assessing the situation. Lina glances at Travis, her tone curious and cautious. "Travis, what's going on here? Dispatch said you needed backup for a suspicious individual?" Travis nods, his confidence unwavering. "Exactly, Lina. I found this guy sitting here, acting all innocent, but something's off about him. I asked him a few questions, and he's been evasive, won't tell me what he's really doing here." Lina turns to Adan, who meets her gaze with a calm, collected look. She can immediately sense something different about him, something that doesn't fit the narrative Travis is trying to build. "Sir, would you mind telling me your name?" Adan nods, his tone respectful but firm. "Of course, officer. My name is Adan Chike." The name stirs something in Lina's memory, and a hint of recognition crosses her face. She studies him for a moment longer before turning to Travis, her tone shifting slightly. "Travis, do you realize who this is?" Travis's smug expression falters, his face twisting in confusion. "What are you talking about, Lina? He's just some guy sitting in the park, acting all suspicious." Lina's voice grows more insistent, a note of urgency underlying her words. "No, Travis. This isn't just some guy. This is Special Agent Adan Chike from the FBI." Travis, as the color drains from his face, his smug confidence crumbles, replaced by a look of horror. For the first time, he realizes the gravity of his mistake. Travis's mind races as he absorbs the news. Adan isn't the criminal he'd assumed. He's a federal agent, someone with the authority and power that far outweighs his own. In a matter of seconds, everything Travis thought he knew about the situation has been turned on its head. The man he's been interrogating and accusing without cause is a professional who could easily hold him accountable. Travis's voice is barely a whisper, his tone laced with disbelief. "An FBI agent." Lina nods, her expression serious. She senses the full extent of Travis's mistake and realizes the consequences that may follow. The onlookers who were filming have now picked up on the revelation, murmuring among themselves, shocked and intrigued. In that moment, Travis is forced to confront a harsh truth. His assumptions, his biases, his so-called sixth sense, all of it has led him to make a mistake that could cost him his career. And Adan, the man he's been targeting without reason, holds all the power to decide what happens next. Adan, who looks at Travis with a steady, discerning gaze. He doesn't gloat or show anger. Instead, he simply waits, allowing Travis to process the full weight of his actions. Adan remains calm, understanding the power dynamics at play. He could reveal his badge, explain his position, and end this confrontation in an instant. But instead, he lets the silence linger, forcing Travis to confront the consequences of his prejudice. In that silence, Travis finally begins to understand just how deeply his assumptions have failed him. Travis stands frozen, a mixture of fear, shame, and regret on his face. Officer Travis Brock was still in shock, his face pale and his posture stiff. He stands motionless, staring at Adan as the reality of his mistake starts to sink in. Officer Lina Moretti glances between them, her expression torn between empathy for Adan and disappointment in Travis. Silence stretches across the park. The onlookers are still watching, their curiosity mixed with a growing sense of disbelief. They've all seen and heard that the man Officer Brock just treated as a criminal is an FBI agent. This isn't the kind of mistake that can be brushed off. For Travis, the realization hits him like a tidal wave, and he's left with only one question. What now? Lina shifts uncomfortably, her professionalism pushing her to defuse the tension. She turns to Adan, her voice respectful and composed. Agent Chike, I apologize for any misunderstanding. We didn't realize who you were and I hope you can understand. Adan nods slightly, his expression unreadable, though there's a trace of disappointment in his eyes. Officer Moretti, I appreciate your concern, but what I don't understand is why my identity should even matter here. Shouldn't I be treated fairly, regardless of my position? Lina's face flushes slightly, and she glances down, acknowledging the truth in Adan's words. Travis, on the other hand, struggles to find his voice, guilt and shame visible in his clenched fists and downward gaze. I didn't mean. I was just doing my job. You have to understand, I thought. Adan raises a hand, signaling for him to stop. His voice is calm but firm. Officer Brock, I understand that you thought you were doing your job, but your job doesn't give you the right to act on assumptions. Your instincts almost led to a false arrest, based on nothing but your own suspicions. And as you can see, you were wrong. Travis's face reddens, his eyes darting around as if searching for some way to defend himself, but he finds none. The crowd watches, their phones still recording, capturing every word, every uncomfortable silence. Travis feels a pang of panic as he realizes the gravity of the situation. His mistake isn't just a personal embarrassment, it's a public one. The videos being recorded by onlookers could spread, exposing him and his actions to the world. And worse, Adan's words cut deep, leaving him defenseless against the truth of his own actions. Lina steps forward, her tone gentle but authoritative, trying to help Travis salvage the situation. Agent Chike, on behalf of the department, I apologize for the way this has been handled. I assure you, this isn't how we operate. If there's anything we can do to make things right, please let us know. Adan considers her offer, his gaze unwavering as he looks at Travis. Part of him wants to let the officer face the consequences fully, to ensure he understands the harm of acting on prejudice. But another part of him, shaped by years of navigating tense situations, knows that there might be a more impactful way to handle this. Thank you, Officer Moretti. I appreciate your willingness to take accountability. But perhaps there's something better than an apology. Officer Brock, are you willing to listen? Travis looks up, a mixture of relief and trepidation in his eyes. He nods slowly, feeling the weight of his own mistakes. Yes, I'm listening. Adan's tone is steady and calm, though there's an intensity in his words that makes Travis focus fully. You carry a badge, Officer Brock, and with it comes great responsibility. That responsibility means treating every person you encounter with respect and fairness regardless of who they are or what they look like. Your assumptions could have led to far worse consequences today, and I'm not the only one who might suffer because of them. Travis's shoulders slump as he absorbs Adan's words, understanding the gravity of what he nearly caused. For the first time, Travis feels the full weight of his actions not as a police officer, but as a human being. Adan's words echo in his mind, challenging him to rethink his approach, his biases, and his understanding of justice. It's a painful lesson, but one he realizes he can't ignore if he wants to wear the badge with integrity. Lina watches the exchange, her face thoughtful. She steps forward and addresses Adan, her tone respectful. Agent Chike, thank you for your patience. I think we both know that today's events could have gone in a very different direction. I believe there's something valuable for all of us to learn from this. Adan nods, a faint, almost sad smile on his face. Learning is exactly what I hope for. We can't change the past, but we can choose how we act moving forward. Officer Brock, I want you to understand that your actions don't just affect those you interact with, they affect the entire community's trust in you and in your department. Travis finally finds his voice, his words barely above a whisper. I understand. And I'm sorry. Really. I never meant to. Adan's gaze softens slightly, though he remains firm. Then take this as a chance to change. Reflect on what happened here, and let it guide you to be a better officer and a better person. It's not enough to say you're sorry. You have to make sure this doesn't happen again to anyone. Travis nods, visibly moved, his earlier arrogance replaced by humility and a genuine desire to change. As the tension finally begins to dissipate, Adan feels a sense of closure. He knows that Travis's journey is far from over, but he's planted a seed of change, a chance for the officer to grow, to confront his biases, and to serve his community with integrity. And for Adan, this is a small but meaningful step toward justice. Lina steps closer to Adan, offering a handshake. Agent Chike, thank you again. I'll make sure the department is informed about today's incident, and we'll work on taking corrective measures. Adan shakes her hand, nodding in gratitude. As he turns to leave, he glances back at Travis one last time, a silent reminder that this moment could be the start of something better. And as Adan walks away from the park, he leaves behind not just a scene of confrontation, but an opportunity for reflection and growth. For Travis Brock, this is the beginning of a journey, one that will challenge his beliefs, reshape his character, and, if he chooses to rise to the occasion, make him the kind of officer he once believed himself to be. At the departments, there is a small plain office of Lieutenant Walcott, the commanding officer at the precinct. Papers are stacked in neat piles across his desk, and a small, worn plaque with his name sits at the edge. Officer Lina Moretti is seated in front of him, her expression serious as she recounts the events of the previous day. Lieutenant Walcott is a veteran of the force, known for his even-handed approach to both discipline and mentorship. He's watched many officers come and go, seen them grow from rookies into seasoned professionals, and he's witnessed their stumbles along the way. But what Lina is telling him now is that the confrontation between Officer Travis Brock and Special Agent Adan Chike is unlike any case of overreach he's handled before. Walcott leans back in his chair, his brow furrowed as he processes the situation. His voice is calm, though there's a hint of disappointment. Lina, are you telling me Travis made the decision to arrest someone in a public park solely based on a hunch? Lina nods, her gaze steady but troubled. Yes, sir. He called for backup, detained Adan Chike without any probable cause, and only backed down after I recognized who Adan really was. And, Lieutenant, it wasn't just any suspect he was harassing. It was an FBI agent. Walcott exhales deeply, rubbing his temples as he absorbs the weight of the situation. An FBI agent and a black man. Travis had no reason to approach him, no cause to detain him, and now he's put the entire department at risk of scrutiny. Do you know if there's footage of the incident? Yes, sir. A number of bystanders were recording. The video has already started circulating online. Walcott's face hardens. He knows that footage like this can damage the department's reputation, eroding the trust of the very community they're sworn to protect. He sighs, considering his next steps. For Walcott, this is more than a public relations problem. It's a matter of ethics, a test of accountability. He prides himself on leading a department where officers respect their communities and each other. But Travis's actions have thrown a glaring light on deeper issues that Walcott knows can't be ignored. Thank you for bringing this to me, Lina. I'll call Travis in. This needs to be addressed firmly and transparently. Lina nods, relieved that her superior is taking this seriously. She knows that Travis needs to be held accountable, not just for the sake of Adan Chike, but for the credibility of the entire department. Travis, sitting in a chair outside Lieutenant Walcott's office, nervously fidgeting as he waits to be called in. His mind races, filled with anxiety about the potential consequences. The confrontation with Adan keeps replaying in his head the initial confidence he felt, the way his assumptions led him down a misguided path, and the crushing realization of his mistake. Travis has spent a sleepless night reflecting on the previous day's events. The shame he feels is new to him, an uncomfortable reminder that his actions had serious implications. He's not just facing disciplinary action. He's confronting the impact of his own prejudice, something he can no longer ignore. The door opens, and Lieutenant Walcott appears in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "Officer Brock, come in?" Travis stands, taking a deep breath before stepping into the office. He takes a seat, his gaze fixed on the floor as Walcott closes the door and sits across from him. "Travis, I'm going to ask you one question, and I expect you to answer it honestly. What were you thinking when you approached Adan Chike yesterday?" Travis shifts uncomfortably, struggling to find the words. He knows that excuses won't help him here. I thought he looked suspicious, sir. He was sitting alone watching people and, I don't know, I just felt like he didn't belong. I thought I was protecting the park." "Protecting the park from what exactly?" says Lieutenant Walcott. "Travis, did Adan do anything that actually warranted your suspicion? Or were you acting on an assumption?" Travis falters, finally looking up to meet his lieutenant's steady gaze. "It was an assumption, sir. I assumed he was up to something, just based on his appearance." Walcott's expression hardens, his disappointment clear. "Travis, as an officer, your job is to serve and protect every member of this community. That means treating everyone with respect and fairness, regardless of who they are or what they look like. What you did yesterday wasn't just a mistake, it was a breach of trust. And it's going to take a lot to rebuild that trust." Travis feels a deep pang of regret, realizing that his actions have consequences far beyond his own discomfort. As Travis sits in silence, he begins to understand the magnitude of what he's done. His assumptions didn't just affect Adan, they affected his fellow officers, his department, and the community's faith in the people sworn to protect them. This isn't just a lesson. It's a reckoning. Lieutenant Walcott takes a breath, his tone softening slightly as he looks at Travis, with a mixture of sternness and sympathy. "Travis, I'm going to place you on administrative leave while we conduct a full investigation. During this time, I want you to think long and hard about what it means to wear that badge. And if you decide to come back, you'll need to show this department and this community that you're committed to being better." Travis nods, his voice barely a whisper. "Yes, sir. I understand." Walcott leans forward, his gaze unwavering. "Lieutenant Walcott, this isn't the end of the road for you, Travis, but it's a chance to change. Whether you take it or not is up to you." Scene shifts to Travis leaving the office, his steps heavy as he walks through the precinct, feeling the weight of his choices. He exits the building and stands outside, looking around the bustling city streets, his mind filled with thoughts of what he could have done differently. Standing outside the precinct, Travis feels the beginning of a transformation. For the first time, he's confronting the truth of his own biases and realizing that if he's ever going to make amends, he'll have to start with himself. As he walks away, Travis glances back at the precinct, the building that once represented security and justice in his eyes. Now it's a reminder of the work he has to do, not just as an officer, but as a person striving to regain his integrity. Adan Chike sitting at his office in the FBI field headquarters. Sunlight filters through the blinds, casting shadows across his desk, which is filled with paperwork, files, and a cup of coffee. He's scrolling through his phone, where videos of his confrontation with Officer Brock have gone viral overnight. The comment sections are flooded with mixed reactions, some expressing outrage, others voicing support for the officers involved. Adan hadn't planned to be in the spotlight. As an agent, his work often happens behind the scenes, away from public attention. But now, thanks to a single incident in a park, his face and name are on every major social media platform. The confrontation has sparked conversations he didn't expect, bringing both support and scrutiny his way. Adan sets his phone down, exhaling as he processes the public reaction. He knows that he didn't ask for this, but he can't deny that it sparked an important conversation. A knock on the door breaks his thoughts. Adan looks up to see his superior, Special Agent Karen Lindholm, standing in the doorway. Her expression is a mix of concern and curiosity. "Mind if I come in, Adan?" Adan nods, gesturing for her to sit. She closes the door behind her, taking a seat across from him, her eyes scanning his face for any hint of what he's feeling. "I saw the videos. Quite the scene yesterday, huh?" Adan nods slowly, choosing his words carefully. "Yeah, it got out of hand fast. I didn't expect that kind of reaction or the assumptions that came with it." Lindholm sighs, her tone both understanding and firm. "You handled it well. Most people would have reacted with anger, but you kept your cool. That says a lot about you, Adan. Still, the video has raised some questions here. The Bureau's getting calls, and people are asking if we're going to make an official statement." Adan raises an eyebrow, a bit surprised. "A statement? About what?" "I wasn't acting in any official capacity when it happened. I was just existing in a public space." Lindholm nods, understanding his frustration, but also aware of the pressure mounting from outside. "I know, but you're also an FBI agent, and that makes this more complicated. When something like this happens, it doesn't just affect the police department, it reflects on us, too. People are questioning law enforcement as a whole, and we can't ignore that." Adan listens, realizing that what happened with Officer Brock has indeed rippled far beyond that park. This incident isn't just a conversation about one officer's bias, it's ignited a debate about the broader system. And as much as he didn't want this spotlight, he knows he can't avoid it now. He leans forward, his tone thoughtful. "So, what are you saying, Karen? Are you suggesting I make a public statement?" Lindholm considers his words carefully. "I'm not suggesting anything, but I am saying that this is an opportunity, Adan. An opportunity to speak up, to share your perspective not just as a black man who was profiled, but as someone within law enforcement who understands both sides." Adan looks away, the weight of her words settling on him. He's always been one to avoid the limelight, preferring to let his work speak for itself. But now faced with a choice, he realizes that his voice might actually make a difference in this conversation. "Do you think it'll make a difference, Karen? People are angry at the police, angry at the system. What can I possibly say that will change that?" Lindholm places a reassuring hand on his desk, her gaze steady. "You can remind people that change is possible, that people within the system are pushing for better, fairer practices. And maybe, just maybe, it'll encourage others to confront their own biases. You've already had an impact on Officer Brock, from what I heard. That's a start." Adan's mind flashes back to his encounter with Travis, the shame in his eyes, the realization that he'd made a grave mistake. He remembers the moment he chose to use that experience as a teaching moment, hoping it would encourage Travis to grow rather than simply punish him. Now, he wonders if he can do the same on a larger scale. He looks back at Lindholm, a spark of determination in his eyes. "All right. If making a statement can help bring some awareness, and maybe even change a few minds, I'll do it. But I want it to be authentic. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything or downplay the problem." Lindholm smiles, nodding in approval. "That's exactly what we need, Adan. The truth, raw and honest." Later that day, where Adan stands in a small conference room, a few reporters and cameras set up in front of him. It's a modest setup, not the typical high-profile press conference, but enough to get his message across. He takes a deep breath as he steps up to the podium, facing the cameras directly. "I know many of you have seen the video of what happened in the park yesterday. I want to address it not just as a federal agent, but as a person who, like many others, has experienced assumptions based on appearance. Yesterday, I was assumed to be suspicious, a threat, simply because I didn't fit someone's idea of who belonged in that space." He pauses, letting his words sink in, watching as the reporters scribble down his every word. This isn't an isolated incident. It's a reality that too many people face daily, a reminder that bias can impact anyone, anywhere, even in broad daylight, in a public park. As a member of law enforcement, I know the weight of the badge. I know that our job is to serve and protect everyone equally and without prejudice. And when that principle is violated, it erodes trust in the system we're all part of. The room is silent, each person hanging on his words. Adan continues, his tone earnest and steady. I'm not here to condemn anyone, but to encourage us all to reflect. We need to understand that true justice requires accountability, humility, and a commitment to fairness. And that starts with each one of us, no matter who we are or what uniform we wear. He steps back, his message delivered, leaving the reporters with more questions than answers. As he leaves the podium, he feels a weight lifted, a sense of purpose renewed. As Adan exits the conference room, he knows that his journey toward change isn't over. He's taken the first step, hoping that his words will spark something in others, officers, civilians, anyone willing to listen and grow. And somewhere out there, he hopes that Travis Brock is watching, hearing his message, and understanding that this isn't just about a single incident. It's about the future. They all have the power to shape together. In the dimly lit living room of Travis Brock's apartment, he's seated on his couch, alone, watching the video of Adan's public statement from earlier that day. The room is quiet, the only sound coming from the video as Adan's words play on repeat. Travis's face is a mixture of guilt, frustration, and an unsettling sense of self-awareness. Travis has spent his career believing that his instincts were trustworthy, that he was serving and protecting his community with fairness and dedication. But watching Adan Chike speak, he realizes those beliefs were built on shaky ground. He's forced to confront the uncomfortable truth that his actions were rooted in bias, in assumptions that he'd never questioned until now. Travis pauses the video, leaning back on the couch with a heavy sigh. He's seen the backlash, the anger directed at him on social media. Every comment, every accusation chips away at the self-image he'd always held. He wonders if he can ever rebuild his reputation, or if this mistake will define him forever. He picks up his phone and dials the number of his friend, Officer Marcus Naylor. After a few rings, Marcus answers, his voice warm but cautious. Travis, I figured I'd be hearing from you soon. Travis is silent for a moment, unsure where to begin. Marcus, I messed up. Big time. I keep replaying that moment in the park, wondering what I could have done differently. I thought I was just doing my job, but now I'm realizing I wasn't protecting anyone. I was just judging. Marcus is quiet, letting Travis's words sink in before responding. Travis, I know you've always wanted to do the right thing, but sometimes we don't realize we're carrying baggage we didn't even pack ourselves. It's easy to fall into patterns, to rely on assumptions. The question is, what are you going to do about it now? For the first time, Travis acknowledges that this isn't just about one mistake. It's about years of ingrained attitudes and unchecked biases, beliefs that have quietly influenced his decisions without him even noticing. And now, he's faced with a choice to ignore this reckoning or to actively seek change. Travis takes a deep breath, trying to steady himself. I don't know, Marcus. I feel like everything I've built, everything I thought I knew is just gone. I want to be better, but I don't know where to start. Marcus's voice softens, his tone understanding. Look, you can start by owning up to what happened, not just to yourself but to others. Apologize to Adan, not because it'll fix everything, but because it's the right thing to do. And maybe think about what this means for you, for your role as an officer. Travis nods, feeling both the weight and the truth of his friend's words. The next day, Travis stands in front of the FBI field office, nerves fraying as he prepares to walk in and face Adan. The last time he saw Adan, he'd been standing over him with handcuffs, judging him based on nothing but appearance. Now, he's here to face the consequences of his actions. He takes a deep breath and steps inside, approaching the front desk. After a few minutes of waiting, he's escorted to a small meeting room, where Adan enters a moment later. Adan's face is calm but guarded, his expression unreadable as he takes a seat across from Travis. Adan, I know I'm probably the last person you want to see right now, but I came here because I owe you an apology. Adan folds his arms, his gaze steady as he listens. Go ahead. I'm listening. Travis shifts uncomfortably, struggling to find the right words. I acted on assumptions. I saw you in the park, and instead of seeing a person, I saw, I don't know, something I thought was a threat. And I was wrong. I made a decision that wasn't fair and it wasn't right. I know an apology doesn't erase what happened, but I needed you to know that I'm sorry. Adan's expression softens slightly, though he remains measured in his response. Travis, I appreciate you coming here and saying that. It takes a lot to admit when you've made a mistake. But what are you planning to do about it? Saying you're sorry is a start, but it's not the end. Travis nods, feeling the weight of Adan's words. I don't want this to just be words. I want to change. I know I need to confront my own biases and really understand what led me to that moment. I've been thinking about going to some training sessions, maybe something that focuses on racial bias, de-escalation, anything that can help me avoid making the same mistake again. Adan considers this, his expression thoughtful. That's a step in the right direction, Travis. But it's more than just training. It's about listening, about actively challenging those moments when assumptions come up. It's not an easy path, but if you're serious, you can make a difference not just for yourself, but for the people you serve. Travis nods again, his expression resolute. I am serious. I don't want to be the officer I was in that park. I want to be better, to do better. And if that means owning up to my mistakes and putting in the work, then that's what I'll do. Adan gives a small nod, a hint of respect in his eyes. Good. Then prove it, Travis. Not to me, but to yourself, to the community. Actions speak louder than words. And right now, your actions are what matter most. The two sit in silence for a moment, a sense of understanding passing between them. For the first time, Travis feels a glimmer of hope that he can grow from this experience, that he can begin to rebuild his integrity, not through words but through actions. As Travis leaves the FBI office, he feels a strange sense of peace. He knows the road ahead will be challenging, filled with uncomfortable truths and difficult conversations. But he also knows that this journey is necessary not only to make amends with Adan, but to become the officer he once believed himself to be. And somewhere deep down he realizes that this reckoning may be the first real step he's taken toward change. At the police precinct where Officer Travis Brock works, the familiar, bustling environment feels different to him now. He observes his fellow officers with a more discerning eye, catching glimpses of behaviors and comments he used to overlook. Travis is quieter than usual, absorbing everything around him with a new perspective. After his conversation with Adan, Travis has started to see things differently. He's noticing patterns of small, seemingly harmless remarks that hint at the biases lying beneath. He's uncomfortable, but he knows that acknowledging these truths is the first step to change. As he walks toward his desk, Travis passes a few officers chatting in the hallway. He overhears Officer Riggs making a joke at the expense of a recent arrest of a young black man whose charges were later dropped due to lack of evidence. The joke stings in a way it never did before. Travis hesitates, feeling the weight of the moment. Riggs notices Travis listening and smirks, clearly trying to include him in the joke. Hey, Brock, you hear about that kid we brought in last week? Turns out he was innocent after all. Guess he just looked the part, huh? The other officers chuckle, but Travis feels a surge of frustration. He realizes this is an opportunity to challenge the thinking that led him down the wrong path, the very mindset that resulted in his encounter with Adan. Taking a breath, he speaks up, his voice steady but firm. Come on, Riggs. That's not funny. Just because someone doesn't fit our idea of normal doesn't mean they're guilty of something. We're supposed to be here to serve and protect, not make snap judgments. The hallway falls silent. The officers exchange glances, clearly taken aback by Travis's response. Riggs chuckles uncomfortably, attempting to brush it off. All right, calm down, Brock. Just messing around, you know? Don't tell me you're going soft on us. Travis doesn't let it go, keeping his tone calm but resolute. It's not about going soft. It's about being fair. I don't want to be the guy who ruins someone's life over a joke or an assumption. That's not who I want to be, and I think it's not who any of us should be. The other officers fall quiet, sensing the conviction in Travis's words. Riggs, a bit taken aback, shifts uncomfortably and mumbles something under his breath before walking away. Travis watches him go, feeling both a sense of unease and a strange satisfaction. He's not used to being the one who speaks up, but he knows this is the path he must take. In that small interaction, Travis has taken another step toward change. It's uncomfortable, even isolating, but he understands that these moments, however small, matter. They're seeds of change that he hopes will grow, shaping both him and his environment. Scene shifts to later that day. Travis is seated in a dimly lit classroom, attending a racial bias and sensitivity training session. The instructor, a calm and articulate woman named Dr. Serena Ford, addresses the group of officers with a compassionate but firm tone. She introduces the session by sharing research on implicit bias, explaining how it affects decision-making in high-stress situations. Implicit bias is something we all have, whether we like it or not. It's not about blame. It's about awareness. And the first step to dismantling those biases is acknowledging that they exist. Travis listens intently, taking in each word. The session includes exercises designed to highlight unconscious biases, scenarios that force the officers to reflect on their split-second judgments. As the session progresses, Travis feels both a sense of vulnerability and an urge to face the parts of himself he'd rather ignore. At one point, Dr. Ford brings up a story about a young man who was misidentified as a suspect simply because of his race. The story hits close to home for Travis, echoing the mistake he made with Adan. The unfortunate reality is that too often, we make judgments based on surface-level information. But if we're serious about our oath to serve and protect, we have to dig deeper, question our instincts, and remember that every person we encounter deserves respect. The room is quiet, each officer processing the gravity of her words. Travis realizes that this isn't just a lesson for the day, it's a call to action that requires daily commitment. He remembers Adan's challenge to him, to prove himself through actions, not words. After the session, as the officers file out of the room, Travis lingers, hoping for a chance to speak with Dr. Ford. She notices him waiting and smiles, motioning for him to join her at the front of the classroom. Officer Brock, was there something you wanted to discuss? Travis nods, taking a deep breath before speaking. Yes, Dr. Ford. I made a mistake recently. I assumed things about someone based on nothing but bias. And it nearly cost me my integrity and his trust in the system. I came here because I want to change to do better. But it's hard to know where to start. Dr. Ford listens, nodding thoughtfully. The fact that you're here, acknowledging that mistake, is already a big step. Change doesn't happen overnight, Officer Brock. It's a journey, one that requires humility and patience. But if you're committed to it, I think you'll find it's worth every uncomfortable moment. Travis nods, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. I am committed. I don't want to be defined by one mistake. I want to be part of the solution. Dr. Ford smiles, her gaze kind but resolute. Then keep showing up, keep learning, and most importantly, keep challenging yourself. True growth isn't easy, but it's what separates good officers from great ones. And I believe you have it in you to be one of the greats, Travis. As he leaves the classroom, Travis feels a sense of clarity. He knows that this journey won't be without challenges, but he's ready to face them head-on. For the first time, he feels that he's moving in the right direction, not just for himself, but for the people he's sworn to serve. Travis has planted the seeds of change within himself, and now he's determined to see them grow. He's no longer just an officer following orders. He's becoming an agent of transformation, one step at a time. And as he walks out of the precinct that night, he's filled with a quiet hope that this path, however difficult, will lead to a better, more just future. At a community center where a town hall meeting is in session, the event has been organized to discuss issues of policing, community relations, and racial bias. Travis has been invited to represent the precinct, but he sits quietly in the back, uncertain if he should even speak. He feels like an outsider among his own community, a stark reminder of the line he crossed with Adan. As he looks around, he sees people of all ages, backgrounds, and ethnicities gathered to voice their concerns. Travis is here to listen, to bear witness to the pain he knows he's contributed to. He feels a mix of apprehension and resolve. This isn't about defending himself. It's about understanding the depth of the harm caused by people in his position, himself included. The moderator, a local activist named Lina Moretti, steps up to the microphone and addresses the crowd. Her voice is strong, each word resonating with the audience. Tonight, we're here to speak openly, to listen to each other, and to find a path forward. This community has felt the weight of bias, of unfair treatment, and we deserve better. We need accountability, not just apologies. The crowd nods in agreement, murmuring words of support. Lina begins by inviting community members to share their stories, and one by one, people step up to the microphone. A middle-aged woman tells a story about her son, who was profiled and detained simply because he fit a description. A young man shares his experience of being pulled over repeatedly without cause. Their voices are full of frustration and sorrow, the collective pain of a community that has been mistreated. Travis listens, each story sinking deeper into his conscience. He feels the weight of their words, realizing that these aren't just isolated incidents, but part of a much larger pattern, one he's contributed to. After several stories, Lina gestures toward Travis, acknowledging his presence. We have Officer Travis Brock here with us tonight, someone who recently had a very public reckoning with his own biases. Officer Brock, would you like to speak? Travis feels every eye in the room turn toward him. His heart pounds, but he stands, walking slowly to the front. He can feel the tension, the mistrust, but he also senses a faint hope in the crowd that maybe, just maybe, he has something meaningful to say. He takes a breath, looking out at the people gathered, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Thank you for giving me the chance to speak tonight. I know that trust has to be earned, and right now I have a long way to go. Recently, I made a serious mistake. I judged someone, a man named Adan Chike, not because of his actions, but because of the assumptions I carried with me. I saw him as a threat without reason, and that was wrong. That was my bias, my failure. The room is silent, his words hanging heavy in the air. Travis pauses, his voice tightening as he continues. I can't take back what I did, and I don't expect you to forgive me because of a few words tonight. But I want you all to know that I'm here to listen, to learn, and to be part of the change this community needs. I'm not here to defend myself. I'm here because I want to do better. I want to be better. A young woman in the crowd raises her hand, and Lina hands her the microphone. Officer Brock, it's one thing to say you're sorry, but how do we know this isn't just for show? How do we know you won't just go back to the way things were? Travis looks her in the eyes, his expression earnest. You're right to ask that. I know words aren't enough. I've started attending training sessions on racial bias, and I've committed to doing more reading, meeting with community leaders, and learning from people who've been on the other side of my badge. This won't change overnight, but I'm committed to making it my mission to keep growing, to hold myself accountable, and to support policies that will bring real change. Another community member, an older man with a deep, authoritative voice, speaks up. What about the rest of the force? How are you going to make sure they're doing the same? Because it's not just one officer we're talking about, it's the whole system. Travis nods, acknowledging the depth of the issue. I agree. This isn't just about me. I've started having those difficult conversations with my colleagues, challenging attitudes and assumptions. It's not easy, and not everyone is open to change, but I'm determined to keep pushing. I can't fix the system alone, but I can be a voice for change within it. I'm also working with Dr. Serena Ford, a racial bias expert, to find ways we can improve our training and make it more meaningful. We need to do better as a department, as a community. Lina steps up, addressing both Travis and the audience. This is a start, but it's going to take consistent action. This community has been asking for change for years, and we're not here to settle for empty promises. Officer Brock will be watching, and we'll hold you accountable. It's time to turn words into action. Travis nods, understanding the gravity of her words. He feels a mix of humility and resolve, a determination to prove himself not through apologies, but through actions. As the meeting draws to a close, people begin to file out of the community center. Some look at Travis with suspicion, others with cautious hope. A few even offer nods of encouragement, small gestures that give him the strength to continue. Travis leaves the community center with a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead is long, and the weight of responsibility feels heavy, but he's ready to bear it. He understands that change isn't easy. It's built on moments like these, painful but necessary. And for the first time, he feels that he's not just an officer. He's a bridge between the community he serves and the change it so desperately needs. On a bright, crisp morning in the city, Travis stands at the entrance of the precinct, a nervous energy pulsing through him. Today is not just another day on the job. It's the day he's scheduled to present a new initiative aimed at building better relationships between the police and the community. With a notebook clutched in his hands, he reviews his notes one last time, mentally preparing for what's to come. Travis knows that today could be pivotal not just for him, but for the entire precinct. He's gathered input from community members, colleagues, and experts, and he hopes to present a comprehensive plan that addresses the deep-seated issues of bias and trust. The stakes are high, and the pressure is palpable. As he walks through the precinct's bustling corridors, he encounters familiar faces. Some officers greet him warmly, while others maintain a distance, unsure of how to engage with him after the recent events. Travis meets their gazes with a quiet determination, knowing he's embarked on a journey of transformation not just for himself, but for the entire department. He reaches the conference room where the meeting is set to take place. Taking a deep breath, he steps inside to find a mix of officers, community leaders, and local media present. The atmosphere is charged with anticipation. Lina Dawes is seated in the front row, her presence a reminder of the community's expectations. Travis approaches the podium, and the room falls silent. He glances down at his notes, then looks out at the audience, drawing strength from the diverse faces before him. Thank you all for being here today. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak about an initiative I believe can foster real change within our community and our department. I've learned a lot over the past few weeks, and it's become abundantly clear to me that trust is not given freely. It must be earned through consistent action and transparency. He pauses, letting his words sink in. He can feel the weight of their scrutiny, but he pushes forward. Today, I'm proposing a series of community engagement programs designed to bridge the gap between law enforcement and the neighborhoods we serve. This includes regular community forums, youth mentorship programs, and enhanced sensitivity training that involves not just officers but community members as well. Some murmurs of approval ripple through the audience, but Travis knows he must do more than just talk. He needs to address the challenges directly. I also recognize that bias training is only one part of the solution. We must implement ongoing assessments of our practices and policies to ensure they align with the values of our community. I'm committed to working with Dr. Serena Ford to develop a framework for this ongoing evaluation, ensuring accountability at every level. Lina raises her hand, and Travis nods at her, inviting her to speak. Officer Brock, this is a promising start, but many of us are concerned about how these programs will be funded. Can you assure us that the precinct will allocate resources for this initiative and not just treat it as a temporary measure? Travis nods, anticipating her question. I understand your concerns, Lina. I'm currently working with the precinct leadership to secure funding and partnerships with local organizations. This isn't just a one-off program. It's a commitment to long-term change. We'll seek grants, community sponsorships, and work closely with local businesses to support our initiatives. He sees nods of approval from some members of the audience, but he also notices skepticism from others. He takes a deep breath, ready to face the challenge. I know that trust is built through actions, not just words. I'm here to listen, to learn from you all, and to be held accountable. I can't do this alone. It's going to take the entire precinct and the community working together. As the presentation continues, Travis outlines specific goals, timelines, and metrics for success. He emphasizes the importance of feedback from community members and their active participation in the policing process. The audience starts to engage, asking questions and providing suggestions, creating a dialogue that feels constructive and hopeful. After the presentation, several community leaders approach him, expressing their support and willingness to collaborate. Travis feels a sense of camaraderie he hadn't expected, a glimmer of hope that real change might be possible. Later, as he walks out of the conference room, Lina catches up to him, her expression a mix of approval and caution. That was a solid presentation, Officer Brock. But remember, talk is cheap. It's what happens next that matters most. We're counting on you to follow through. Travis meets her gaze, sincerity etched on his face. I promise, Lina, I won't let you down. This is just the beginning, and I'm committed to making it work. Over the following weeks, the initiative begins to take shape. Travis works tirelessly to organize community forums, bringing together residents and officers in spaces that promote open dialogue. He witnessed firsthand the power of vulnerability as officers share their own experiences, while community members express their frustrations, fears, and hopes. One evening, during a forum at a local park, a woman named Margaret shares her story of how her brother was wrongfully arrested, an incident that has haunted her family for years. As she speaks, her voice quakes with emotion, and Travis feels the weight of her pain. He takes notes, determined to address these issues directly. After the forum, he approaches Margaret, his heart heavy with empathy. Margaret, thank you for sharing your story. I can't imagine what your family has gone through, but I want you to know that I'm committed to making sure that doesn't happen again. Your voice matters, and I want to work with you to create change. Margaret looks at him, a mix of gratitude and skepticism in her eyes. I appreciate that, Officer Brock, but it's going to take more than promises. It's going to take action. We need to see change, not just hear about it. Travis nods, understanding the gravity of her words. He feels the weight of responsibility on his shoulders, but also a renewed sense of purpose. As Travis continues on this journey of transformation, he realizes that each conversation, each moment of vulnerability, and each act of accountability is a step toward healing, not just for the community, but for himself as well. He's no longer just a police officer. He's a catalyst for change, committed to proving that redemption is possible, one action at a time. As the sun sets on the city, Travis feels a sense of hope wash over him. The road ahead is still uncertain, filled with challenges and moments of doubt, but he knows he's not walking it alone. Together with the community, he's forging a new path forward, one built on trust, understanding, and a commitment to justice for all.